The year is 1500 BC. We are in Egypt, a land of grandeur and mystery where the mighty Nile River flows through the heart of civilization. This is a time when the pharaohs, considered gods on earth, rule with absolute power. The sun beats down on the land, casting an unforgiving heat over the vast deserts and fertile plains. The relentless sun is both a giver of life and a harsh taskmaster. The pharaoh rules with an iron fist, his word is law, and his decrees shape the lives of all who dwell in his kingdom. His power is unquestioned and his ambitions are vast. The Israelites, a people brought to Egypt generations ago, are enslaved. They toil under the watchful eyes of their overseers, their lives a constant struggle against the weight of oppression. They are forced to build grand cities and monuments, their sweat and blood mixed with the mortar that binds the stones. These structures, meant to glorify the pharaoh, stand as silent witnesses to their suffering. Their lives are filled with toil and hardship. Each day is a battle against exhaustion and despair, their bodies pushed to the brink by the relentless demands of their captors. They cry out for a deliverer, their voices rising in a chorus of desperation. They long for freedom, for a savior who will lead them out of bondage and into a land of their own. Little do they know, their savior is about to be born. In the quiet of the night, under a canopy of stars, hope stirs in the heart of an expectant mother. The Israelites hold on to a promise that has been passed down through generations. It is a promise of deliverance, a beacon of hope in their darkest times. It is a promise whispered from parent to child, a story told by the fireside, a tale of a God who has not forgotten them. This promise is their lifeline, their reason to endure. A promise of a God who has not forgotten them, a God who hears their cries and sees their suffering. They believe that this God will one day send a deliverer to lead them to freedom. They believe that one day, God will raise up a leader who will challenge the might of Pharaoh and break the chains of their enslavement. This leader will free them from bondage, leading them out of Egypt and into a land promised to their ancestors. It is a vision of liberation that sustains them through their darkest hours. They will finally be able to return to their ancestral home, a land flowing with milk and honey, a place where they can live in peace and freedom. They cling to this hope in their darkest hour, finding strength in their shared faith and the promise of a brighter future. It is this hope that keeps them going, a hope that burns brightly even in the face of overwhelming odds. It is a hope that will one day lead them to freedom. A desperate mother makes an impossible choice. She places her infant son in a basket. The basket is coated in pitch. It floats upon the Nile River. The baby's sister Miriam watches from afar. She prays for her little brother's safety. Little does she know, destiny is guiding his tiny vessel. The pharaoh's daughter discovers the baby. She feels compassion for the child. She decides to adopt him. His Hebrew mother becomes his nurse. This ensures he grows up knowing his true heritage. He is given the name Moses. It is a name that means drawn out of the water. Moses grows up. He lives in the lap of luxury. He is a prince of Egypt. But he never forgets his Hebrew roots. One day he witnesses an Egyptian overseer beating a Hebrew slave. He is filled with rage. He strikes down the Egyptian and hides the body. His act of violence is discovered. Moses is forced to flee from Egypt. He leaves his life of privilege behind. He journeys into the vast and unforgiving desert. Alone and filled with uncertainty, he seeks refuge in the land of Midian. Moses finds a new life in Midian. He becomes a shepherd, tending to his flock in the vast, arid terrain. The simplicity of this life is a stark contrast to the opulence and complexity of his past in Egypt. Here, amidst the quiet and solitude of the desert, Moses begins to find a sense of peace and purpose. He marries Zipporah, the daughter of a priest named Jethro. Their union is a blend of cultures and traditions, symbolizing a new chapter in Moses' life. Together, they build a family and a home, rooted in the values of faith and community. He lives a simple life, far from the grandeur of Egypt. His days are filled with the humble tasks of a shepherd, and his nights are spent under the vast, starry skies of the desert. This life, though modest, brings him a deep sense of fulfillment and connection to the land. But his destiny has not forgotten him. Despite the tranquility of his new life, there is a sense of something greater calling to him, a purpose that has yet to be revealed. Moses often finds himself lost in thought, contemplating the mysteries of his existence and the path that lies ahead. One day, while tending to his flock near Mount Horeb, God appears to Moses in a most unexpected way. a burning bush that is not consumed by the flames. The sight is both mesmerizing and terrifying, a supernatural phenomenon that defies the laws of nature. God speaks from the fire, his voice resonating with power and authority. The message is clear and unmistakable, a divine command that will change the course of Moses' life forever. He tells Moses of his plan to free the Israelites from slavery. The weight of this revelation is immense, and Moses listens with a mix of awe and trepidation. The task ahead is monumental, and the responsibility placed upon his shoulders is overwhelming. God selects Moses to be his instrument of deliverance. Moses is terrified, his mind racing with doubts and fears. How can he, a simple shepherd, confront the mighty Pharaoh and lead an entire nation to freedom? He doubts his ability to fulfill such a momentous task. But God reassures him, promising to provide the strength and guidance needed to accomplish this divine mission. The reassurance brings a glimmer of hope to Moses' troubled heart. He promises to be with him every step of the way. With this divine assurance, Moses begins to feel a newfound sense of courage and determination. He understands that he is not alone in this journey, and that with God's help, he can overcome any obstacle. God gives Moses a sign. His shepherd's staff will have the power to perform miracles. This staff, once a simple tool of his trade, is now a symbol of divine power and authority. With it, Moses is equipped to face the challenges ahead and fulfill his destiny as the leader of his people. Moses returns to Egypt. He carries with him the heavy burden of God's command. He seeks out his brother Aaron. Aaron is a gifted speaker. God chooses Aaron to be Moses' spokesperson. Together, they will confront Pharaoh and demand the release of their people. Moses and Aaron stand before Pharaoh. They deliver God's message, "Let my people go." Pharaoh scoffs. He refuses to release his valuable slaves. He increases their workload. The Israelites suffer under his cruel hand. Their cries rise to the heavens. God hears their pleas. He will use Moses and Aaron to unleash his wrath upon Egypt. God sends a series of plagues upon Egypt, each more devastating than the last, to compel Pharaoh to release the Israelites from bondage. The first plague strikes the lifeblood of Egypt, the Nile River. It turns to blood, causing the fish to die and the water to become undrinkable. The Egyptians are horrified as their primary water source becomes a symbol of divine wrath. Then, as if the bloodied river wasn't enough, frogs emerge in overwhelming numbers, invading homes, streets, and even the palace itself. The land is overrun by these amphibians, creating chaos and discomfort. Next, the air becomes thick with gnats, tiny insects that torment the Egyptians, making life unbearable. Following the gnats, swarms of flies descend upon the land, spreading disease and adding to the misery. The livestock, essential to the Egyptians' way of life, begin to die in large numbers, further crippling the nation's economy and food supply. As the plagues continue, the Egyptians' suffering intensifies. Boils erupt on their skin, painful and unsightly, affecting both people and animals. The once proud citizens of Egypt are reduced to a state of agony and helplessness. The heavens themselves seem to turn against Egypt as hail and fire rain down from the sky, destroying crops and property. The devastation is compounded when locusts swarm in, devouring any remaining vegetation and leaving the land barren. Darkness then covers the land for 3 days, a tangible manifestation of despair and divine judgment. Yet despite these overwhelming signs, Pharaoh remains defiant. He hardens his heart against God and refuses to free the Israelites. His stubbornness is unyielding and he continues to resist the divine command. With each plague, Moses and Aaron stand before Pharaoh, pleading for the release of their people. "Let God's people go," they implore. But their words fall on deaf ears. Pharaoh's heart grows harder with each passing day. Pharaoh's defiance is unwavering. He refuses to listen, his pride and arrogance blinding him to the suffering of his people and the power of the God of Israel. His stubbornness brings ruin upon his people. The Egyptians suffer greatly, their land and lives devastated by the relentless plagues. The once great nation is brought to its knees, but through it all, the Israelites are spared. They are protected from the plagues, a testament to the power and favor of their God. They witness the awesome power of their God. Their faith is strengthened, and they are reminded of the covenant that binds them to the Almighty. The plagues serve as a powerful demonstration of God's will and the lengths he will go to free his people. Finally, God sends the 10th and final plague, the death of the firstborn. Every firstborn son in Egypt will die, from the Pharaoh's son to the firstborn of the lowliest slave. But God provides a way for the Israelites to be spared. They must follow a special set of instructions. The Israelites are to sacrifice a lamb without blemish. They are to take the blood of the lamb and paint it on their doorposts. When the angel of death sees the blood, he will pass over their homes. This is the first Passover. It is a night forever etched in the memory of the Jewish people.